Hi guys, and welcome to Activity 17 for Biological Sciences for Year 10. In this video what we're going to be looking at is the evidence for modern day evolution. Now there are four main pieces of evidence that we're going to be looking at in this video. That is fossils, formation of fossils, biogeography, comparative anatomy, and comparing DNA. So let's look at the first one, which is the concept of fossils. Now as we know, fossils are basically bones which have been the remnants of a plant or an organism, an animal, which died in a specific area, and as a result the bones turned into rock. Now, excavation of these bones has led to us to being able to look at specific structures and be able to ascertain, oh well, at this point in the evolution, we've been able to say that this structure actually existed. Now, by doing radioactive dating, which is whereby we look at how radioactive the carbon is inside the rock, we are then able to determine how old the fossils were and what type of organisms were around at that period of time. Now, unfortunately, this is not conclusive evidence because we don't have a huge number of fossils, because fossils have to be formed in specific environments. For example, you've got to have an organism that's going to die in a peat bog and the remains are going to be preserved, or it may fall into a tar pit, or you might have amber, which is sap, basically getting an insect or a plant, and as a result it preserves it. So although fossil evidence will allow us to say, well, this organism existed in this area at one time, we don't have multiple pieces of evidence to back this up. So that deals with the fossil evidence. The next one is biogeography. Now this works on a similar sort of process, but it works on the principle that at one stage all the land masses, the continents, were together. Now in Year 9 we looked at this idea of continental drift, with the idea that Alfred Wegener basically stated that the continents basically are lumps of rock which are floating on a liquid magma, and as the magma moves due to convection, the continents move. Now, how's this going to affect our organisms? Well, the key is, as organisms move from one place to the next, they go onto different land masses. Now, as the land masses move over hundreds of thousands of years, what that means is that the environment is going to change. So, for example, we could have, you can see in the picture down below on Gondwana land, we've got South America, which is sitting at the base of, down to the western corner of Africa. Now, as it moved, it's going to be moving over to the left and then further up, closer to the equator. That means that the temperature is going to change. So just by the moving of continental drift, we're going to get a change in environment due to different temperatures. Also, as the world was evolving, there are going to be climatic changes in the environment. We had periods of very, very hot weather. We had periods of very, very cold weather, such as the Ice Age. So organisms will evolve according to the type of climate that they are subjected to. And as a result, characteristics are coded for and against. So how does biogeography actually work? Well, we can use the concept of fossils plus the concept of finding different organisms in different areas of the world and saying, at one stage they are related. Now, by looking at the organism that you've got as a fossil and then seeing what organism you probably was evolved from that, you can see how the changes occurred. For example, you might have some form of extinct crocodile, and then as you move from one area to the next due to it moved into two different continents, but as the continents moved, those crocodiles will have changed. Now, you may get things like the Cayman crocodile, which has basically got that very, very long, narrow snout, whereas if you look in Australia, we've got the freshwater crocodile, which has got that big head. Now, basically, there has been some evolution that's occurred there, but they would have come from the same ancestor. So by looking at different areas of the world, looking at their fossils, we get the ancestor, and then being able to extrapolate from the ancestor, we're then able to say, well, maybe this organism came from here. We've got evidence to say that it existed here because the fossils are on that continent, but this organism has evolved from it, and this is different to the organism on another continent, this is obviously down to some form of evolution, some form of change. What that change is will vary. So obviously nature is selecting for each of those specific characteristics. Okay, so the next one that we can look at is comparing anatomical structures. Now, if you look at the diagram that we've got on the right-hand side here, you can see in blue we've got the basic pattern of a forelimb of a bone, which consists of the long bone here, the humerus, then we've got the two bones down here, the ulna and the radius, and then it's finishing off with our five phalanges, our fingers, and our hand. Now, the basic structure can be seen in blue. Now, on the left-hand side of the basic structure, you can see the human bone. Now, what I'd like you to do is have a good look at the bat on the right-hand side and the whale. Now, you notice that the whale has got a big bone at the top, it's got two bones, and then look at the number of fingers that it's got. It's got 5 fingers. So as a result, that looks like a hand, a human hand, but it has evolved to changes within the environment. The whale remained in the ocean. Is this evidence to say that human beings at one stage might have evolved from a similar organism? Or is this evidence to say that the early ancestor of the human being came out of the land and then some ancestor then went back into the sea, and that's why we've got some anatomical structure? Let's look at the bat. The bat on the top has got the humerus, you can see the A bone. It's got B and C, now one bone is behind the other. And then look, we've then got 5 structures again for the fingers. One is very, very short, and then we've got the 4 fingers sticking out. Again, that's an example very similar to the human being. The horse, in the case of the horse, again, the top forelimb is the same. Then we've got the same bones going down for B and C, but then what we've got is an elongated finger. Now, the other fingers will have been lost, but what we've got is one elongated finger, and that has basically produced the horse's hoof. Similar sort of situation that's happened in the bird. Okay, so by looking at the structure of the bones, we can then basically say, maybe this linked to this came from this, and as a result we can piece together bit by bit the family tree of an organism as we look at the comparative bone structures which have been set up. Now, the final one that we can look at, and as this has only been recently been done over the last it's coming up to just over the last 80 years or so, is comparing DNA. Now, basically we've all heard of DNA fingerprinting, where we're trying to get a match looking at the various genes which are produced within DNA. Now, although DNA can be very, very similar, it can lead to major, that little difference can lead to major differences. For example, a chimpanzee is said to be 98.5% similar to human DNA. But look at the difference in the 2 pictures below. Yes, there are similarities, but there's also a huge difference between the 2 species. So by looking at DNA, we can basically say, well, this portion links with this portion. For example, an orangutan has hemoglobin, the DNA which codes for hemoglobin, which is the chemical which holds the oxygen in the red blood cell, is around about 99% the same as the human being in base codes. Now, that's again very, very similar. Does this mean we come from orangutan? Well, probably not, but it's probably likely that our ancestors were very, very closely linked. Pigs, for example. Pigs' insulin is now was used for diabetics. Now, is this because the pig's DNA basically is very, very similar to human DNA, or did we share a common ancestor? So by looking at DNA, we are able to ascertain whether an organism has got specific links. The closer the DNA code is to an organism that you're looking at, then the more chance that they ancestrally come from the same point. Okay, so that basically finishes off all the work we've done on evolution. I thought I'd throw this slide in at the end because it's quite important to understand that evolution is a continual process. With the statement, this is the end, or is it? Then in human evolution, surely the answer is no. we are just in one step of a long step of evolution. Where we go in the future, who knows? But evolution is continually occurring. Okay, well, I hope you found this course useful. I have put some exercises on underneath this post, so I hope you found it useful. I hope you've enjoyed the course. I'd like to wish you all the best for your test. Do get on and have a go at the pop quiz, and yeah, thanks for watching.